one or two house hacks without a lot of money is possible. But if you really want to accrue a portfolio of a significant amount of real estate, there are low and no money down strategies, but
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast. I'd like to happily introduce Dan Haberkost. He's the CEO of Front Range Land. He started his investing journey at the wee little age of 16, and he's managed to build an impressive real estate business portfolio that allows him the freedom to live and work where he wants well into his 20s. That's what kind of we all want, is the freedom to work and when we want and where we want. How you doing, Dan?
Mike, I'm great. How are you?
Good. So let's start a little bit about how you got involved in real estate. What's your background?
Sure. So that note about being 16, that's when I was managing somebody else's rental properties. So as a high schooler, I worked on a farm, and the owner of that farm would go to Aruba for most of the year. And he also owned a number of rental properties that he needed someone to deal with while he was gone. And so that person was me. So I took care of his farm, his rentals. I didn't start investing till in college. But so I did that through high school. And then in college, worked full time, went to school full time, and was managing a landscaping company. And so around 20 years old, I've been working 40 to 50 hours a week sometime, full-time school. That was not a whole lot of fun. Didn't have the typical college experience. And so I was frustrated with that, but I thought, okay, I've been managing people since I was 16. I know a little bit more about business than most people my age. So how do I take that and apply that in some way to investing or a business of my own once I'm done with school to create, put myself ahead, create some sort of financial freedom? And started reading different books. And like everybody else, it was when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was like the light bulb went off, So then I was 21 and just finishing up my last year of college. I bought a duplex in Parma, Ohio, still own it today. And I didn't want to stay in Ohio, moved here to Colorado Springs, bought another house hack out here, still own that one today. And at that time, I realized the low and no money down stuff is great for selling books and courses and podcasts, but real estate is a cash intensive venture, right? If you want to accrue a portfolio, you got to figure out how to make money, right? And so ultimately, that's where Front Range Land came from. Long story short, met a guy at the local real estate group here, which I actually host now, who had been doing land and development for 40 plus years. Would drive an hour south down to Pueblo, Colorado every weekend to go help him in his business, learn from him, just kind of follow him around. And over the course of time, we started doing deals together. He had me source land for his new construction. And then we started doing the projects together. And eventually that's where Front Range Land came in. And so that's my active day-to-day business, Front Range Land, which feeds the accrual of more rental properties.
So now it's funny that you say, expand a little bit on what you mean by, kind of what we call, that we've been in the business a long time, seminar land. Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to maybe some seminars or thinking about it. And it's funny where it's kind of like, these are the HGTV episodes of, hey, you could buy this for free. You can just talk someone into giving you your house, and, all the stuff that you learn that doesn't work, and
Sure.
how, so they don't make those same mistakes. And then what you found out that does work, with doing JVs, finding someone. What's the importance of going to your local RIA?
Yeah. No, that's an important topic. So, one or two house hacks without a lot of money is possible. But if you really want to accrue a portfolio of a significant amount of real estate, there are low and no money down strategies, but somebody needs to have money. And let me give you a great example. That first duplex I mentioned, I bought in Parma, Ohio. This is just a small duplex. I had to replace the roof within the first 6 months of owning that. There's 10 grand. So things like that happen all the time. People look at averages and they think averages are reality. Well, no. An average is what you get over the long term. So they hear on a podcast that, I need to set aside 10% for CapEx or 10% for maintenance or whatever, depending on the age of the building. What they don't realize is that's the average you get over the course of 30 years. you might have a $10,000 expense in the first 6 months, like I did, that then amortizes out and equals, an approximate number over the course of decades. And so you got to have cash available for the things that will go wrong. You've got to have cash available for acquisitions. Sure, you can get sub-2 deals, you can get owner finance deals, but the irony of that, I got one of my rentals financed 100% owner carry. And the only reason he was willing to do that is because I did have cash. I had experience. I wasn't a newbie. I knew how to do construction. If you're the newbie, you're not going to get that deal. He's going to tell you, no, I'm not selling this to you. And so it's just, it's a little misleading. You yourself don't necessarily have to have the cash. If you're really good at finding the deals, you can partner with someone who's got all the money. You just described how you did that. You were the money. You didn't know hotels, and you found someone who knew hotels, and he got in with less cash. So there's an example. But somebody needs to have money because things are going to go wrong. There's going to be vacancies. There's going to be problems. And ultimately, trying to create an entire portfolio on sub-2 and owner finance is really hard. This is much easier, in my opinion, to find an active business where you scale your income and then to use that income to purchase real estate.
Yeah, I only know of one person. He's here in Arizona. He's a friend of mine. I think he has 50 or 60 homes that he did all sub-2.
Okay.
But he also did 20 or 30 via conventional, via JVs, so then it got to the point where he knew how to find those types of things, and he has decades and decades of experience.
Sure.
So yes, you need that experience because it's hard, everybody. You either, if you go get a loan, the bank's going to want experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you want seller financing, the guy's not going to give it to you if you say, hey, I watched 5 episodes of HGTV and I know how to do this. I'm an expert. He's not going to do it. So the importance, everyone, is, and what a lot of people don't realize is if you get someone and you do a joint venture with someone like Dan, you actually put that on your resume as experience also, everybody. Mm-hmm. So now you're building up experience, but you're learning from someone who has experience like Dan. So tell us, Dan, how people can do joint ventures with you. What are you looking for now? What type of markets? And talk us through the process.
Sure. So I want to make a distinction. Front range land is my way of scaling my income, right? Land investing in my mind is a misnomer. Most people aren't investing. It's just arbitrage. You're just buying and selling or, improving it via a build. And then the other bucket is the buy and hold, which isn't passive, but it's more passive and doesn't take up the amount of time as my day to day. And so for the buy and hold side of things, that's all here in Colorado. Working on getting, I'm walking through a fourplex tomorrow in Pueblo, Colorado with the owner. Working on buying some fourplexes here in Colorado. And then on the land side of things, for just the buying and selling, it's really simple. I'm doing business in New Mexico, Colorado, Florida, and North Carolina. And that's pretty simple, but I do want to highlight that I'm only going after horizontally developed land. I don't touch raw land. That's not my niche. And for people who don't know what I mean, a farm field, right? There's raw land. But if you see a house and then a vacant lot and then another house next door and a built out subdivision with a few pieces of dirt left, that is not raw land. You're dealing with land that's already been subdivided. There's probably utilities at the street. The entitlements are there. That is different. That is horizontally developed land, and that is much, much easier to build on. And so I've stuck with that niche because that's what I know. That's what I learned on. There's subdivisions all over the country that were done decades ago, were never built out, or are only, 10, 20, 30% built out. And so that's my niche. And that type of land is much easier to comp, much easier to do your due diligence on. So I'm buying and selling that all over the place. Last kind of bucket is new builds, and all my new builds are here. I definitely would want someone that I know and trust and am partnered with on the ground if I were doing that in other states. So as of now, I just do it here in Colorado where I can go look at it myself.
Yeah, and those are, some good distinctions about what type of land, because there's all these other different things. We've had people that they buy raw land, then improve them, and then sell them, do the development, um, only land that's been developed. I think that's kind of the simpler model. What you're doing, and probably the easiest to control, is, hey, there's 5 lots in this development that still are left. You can either look at the developer, or maybe someone is holding it and wants to cash out. So that's very good. What other types of, with land, it seems like a lot of people are hesitant. It's like, well, I'm not getting any cash, and there's no cash on cash returns. All I'm doing is I'm holding this land and paying taxes on it. So what are some of the things that you should tell people? It's like, look, this is why you do land instead of some of the other stuff.
Sure. And again, I'm not saying it's necessarily a great long-term buy and hold investment strategy, but just under the umbrella of land, there are endless niches. And so, I was helping my buddy with a deal yesterday. He got a piece of land in Colorado where he's going to rent it out to RV owners. So you can create passive income, or mostly passive income, with land, but that's not my niche. So I think of it as simply a great way to make money. You reference some of the people who take the raw land, do the horizontal development, and then sell it off to builders. That's a great way to make money. You can go to Richmond, go to Toll Brothers, figure out what they're looking for, and then you have an end buyer who pays market value because that's not their niche. They're good at building. And so you can get contracts ahead of time for those sorts of developments if you find the right people, the land acquisition people within these big companies, which is a whole nother conversation. With what I'm doing, I'm buying and selling most of this stuff within, a couple weeks to a couple months. And so 30 to 100% cash on cash returns in a few months isn't so bad. So it's a great way to just multiply your capital. And then on the new construction side of things, I like that because not only can I just build spec houses or pre-sale homes, build them and make money, but you can create your own rental inventory and then have rental inventory that doesn't have CapEx or maintenance, assuming you do your screening right, for a long, long time. So you can accomplish most any financial goal with land. And those are just a few of the niches. I have friends in all different niches within land.
So are some of the homes that you're building, and this is another niche, is the build to rent market. It's kind of like a new thing. Are you doing any of that with your new builds, or are you selling them to homeowners?
So I have been selling them up until this point, but I'm working on, so Pueblo, West Colorado has been where I've done most of my builds. And up until this point, I've been just building specs or doing it on pre-sale if a realtor brings a client who wants the house on the land I have. But they are now almost out of water, and this is significant. So they have 290-ish taps left this year, 100 next year, and they're done. And so there's now a massive restriction on supply. So I am aggressively working. I'm doing due diligence on several pieces right now on getting a multifamily lot and building a 24 unit. And I am really hoping to get one of these pieces locked down this week, because buy and hold is now far, far more interesting, or build and hold in this case, that supply is majorly restricted. So working on that right now, but up until this point, no, I've just sold them either pre-sales or specs.
And, that's really good, because there's all these different niches, and we need people. If you can diversify in all these different things. There's some people that just hold the land. There's people that buy land for mineral rights. There's just all this sort of stuff, everyone. And it's just a matter of diversifying your portfolio and getting into all these, just a little bit of money in all these different buckets. Dan, how can people find you if they're interested?
Website?
Yeah, website.
Sure.
LinkedIn, all the different. If they're interested, how can they find you?
Yeah, danhaberkost.com, and same on all the socials. And just launched a podcast with a friend of mine, Big Picture Blueprint.
Big Picture Blueprint. And what else can you tell people as far as a lot of people might not know what a JV agreement is, and that's kind of what you're doing if someone's interested in partnering with you. Talk
sure.
to us a little bit about that.
So on specific projects, I have investors who put up money, and they take a piece of the profits once we're done in return for lending on the project, and do it via joint venture. which is pretty straightforward. It's a matter of just being equity partners in the deal.
And, it's usually they put in equity partners, and then you have the cost and you split, the proceeds. And how, when you do a JV agreement with you, is it just, it's going to be like, here's the land, and all of a sudden it's 2 weeks, you're going to sell it, then the JV is over? Or you're looking at reinvesting and just keep on going? What can they expect if they're looking for something a little more longer term?
Yeah, it depends what they're looking for. There's a number of ways we could set it up, but I have a number of investors who they just fund deal after deal. They take their cash, they get their profit, and then on to the next one. And it's just a matter of wiring the funds, really. So yeah, you can keep the money moving with subsequent deals. And they're not all that fast. Sometimes it takes 3-4 months to sell. So, yep.
Yeah, well, sounds good. Dan, thank you so much for being on the Richer Geek Podcast. Everybody, Front Range Land, Dan Haberkost. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.